Hey there, this is video log number 4. For those of you who don't know what I'm doing, I'm basically just recapping some of the blogs I've already written. I've been writing blogs for several years now, but pretty consistently in the last 2 years. And I'm just going back and recounting some of my favorites and just some neat lessons I've learned. My blog is called Epiphanies, and the last week's blog I did a video on was called Sticking to Our Calling. So if you would love to go back and see that, it's on YouTube, or you can find it on my Facebook page. This blog I want to talk about is called Reflection, and I wrote it in December of 18, so almost a year ago. And I just was coming across this truth that God kept bringing home for me. I was in a BSF study. I was studying about David, and this is the truth he was showing me. Basically, the truth is that the way we see God is the exact way we will represent him to others. So however we are viewing him, whatever aspect or quality or even attribute we might see that stands out to him, that is going to be how we, or what we exhibit to those around us. And I was studying his life at that point in BSF in the Samuels. I was going through Samuels, and the coolest part of it was that we were also backtracking to, or not backtracking, but we were also going to the Psalms that correlated with what he was writing to or about God when he was going through specific things that were recorded in 1st and 2nd Samuel. So it was really neat because I had never been able to see exactly what he was writing at a certain time in his life. So they had done the research and showed us, which chapter of Psalms correlated to which chapter in 1st Samuel. So there are several stories that I was reading about David, but the Psalms, the big thing that was standing out in a lot of the verses that I was reading was David calling God his refuge and praying that God would be a refuge for him. And that just was standing out to me. And then I kept going back to the Samuels and noticing that there were things that were happening in his life where he became a refuge for others. Even when he was running from Saul, I remember there was a story where he was like hiding in a cave, trying not to be killed. And all these people came to him and sort of took refuge under his leadership. They were distressed people and discontent people and people in debt. And that ended up becoming the army that he fought with later on. But they came and took refuge under David as his leader. Also when he became king, obviously he sort of became somewhat of a refuge for the whole nation of Israel. And then backtracking to his childhood, he was a refuge for the sheep that he was a shepherd for, So there's several stories and several examples of David himself being a refuge for those around him. And it was so clear in the Psalms that that's exactly who he saw God as for him. And that was a big standout for what God represented to him and how much he ran to God for that reason and trusted in God as his hiding place, as his safe place, as his high tower, as the one that he could take refuge under his wing and be okay. He knew he was going to be okay. Another example that I think of is just my dad. I've said before, my dad passed away 3.5 years ago, but my dad actually lost his dad when he was very young. My dad was 14 when his dad passed away, and he had 3 younger sisters and a mom that he basically became a refuge for, in a sense. I think he had to grow up really fast at 14. He always had that, or at least from what I knew about him, he just took on that protector mentality, the caretaker. He just took them all under his wing. And then when he got married, of course, and then he had 5 kids. I have 4 siblings, and he was just such a refuge and or such a father figure to us, and a protector and a provider and a caretaker. Then even aside from just his family, he was on the school board at our school. He was a father and a provider and a caretaker for the teachers and the staff. He was a manager of an electric company. He was a father figure for all of his the people that worked for him. He was a basketball coach. He was a father figure for all of my teammates. And he just kind of took people under his wing too, because he had to learn at a very young age how to see God as his father, not that his father wasn't wonderful, but because he died at a very young age, my dad had to really learn how to see God that way. And he did. I can't think of any other word other than father that my dad saw God as. And I can't think of any other word that he represented more to the world than father either. And I'm honored to be his daughter for sure. But I know that it was more than just me that felt like he was a dad to them. And more than me and my siblings. I know a lot of people looked up to him in that way and felt that way. And out of what they saw in my dad, they were able to see God as a father more so for them and identify as a child of God more than they had before, So anyway, that's just kind of a neat point that David represented God as his refuge, and my dad represented God as his father, and that they in turn turned around and represented that same attribute to others. There is a really big thing that I want to stress here at the end, and that is that if we have a wrong view of God, or a twisted or negative or even limited view of God, it could be some very negative results that come from how we might represent him to those around us. If we view God as a dictator or a slave driver, we're going to in turn mistreat or abuse or hold prideful authority over those around us, because that's how we see our God as. Or if we view God as a sugar daddy that just gives us all that we want, then we're going to turn around and we're going to let people run all over us, because we're going to give into manipulation and not be able to truly love others, but just give into what they want from us. If we view God as just like a buddy, we are going to not have depth in our relationships, because we're going to view all other relationships or treat other relationships in the way that we might see God as, and just kind of hang out buddy and not be able to invest and initiate and go to the depths of what a relationship should be or can be. So those are just a few examples of how we might view God negatively, or in a way that is not really him, and that we could in turn affect others negatively, or not represent him in the way we need to be as a witness for him to those around us. And so that was kind of a big reminder to me of the fact that I need to see God the right way, and I need to see God in all of his fullness. But just also I want to be encouraged, and I want to encourage you to know that when you do see God the right way, you're inevitably going to show that to those around you, and the things that stand out to you about God. And they may change over the course of your life. There may be different things that stand out, because God's so big and he has so many wonderful attributes, and there's so many roles that he plays in everyone's life that one may stand out at one point in your life more than others, and you may represent that. But I think over the course of your life, our goal and our hope is to see him fully for who he is, so that we may represent him fully to those around us for who he really is. And so I hope that encourages you. I hope you can really grab onto that truth and know that it's true. I've seen more than just evidence in David and in my dad. I've seen so much evidence in that, just in everybody around me, in my own life. I've seen evidence in the way when I'm not seeing him the right way, and how I show that to others. I fully believe that this is true, and that this is biblical, and this is true from experience. And I want you to grab a hold of that, because the way we see God is so important in our everyday life, in knowing who we are in him, in knowing all that he wants for us, all that he wants to be in us, and in knowing our purpose for our life, but in mainly just being used by him in the right way, and in allowing our relationships with him to be in that unity, in that oneness that it's and for the sake of your witness. So have a great day, and I'll see you in a couple